Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Decentralized Chain. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking to Alex Kirby, who heads up growth over at Bird.Money, with some exclusive announcements first here on this channel. So stay tuned to find out more. Welcome, guys. It's Firoz from DecentralisedChain.com. If this is your first time here and you want to learn more about crypto, whether it's news, insights, or analysis to help you get that edge, then start now by hitting the like button. Certainly drop a sub and don't forget to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Now, as I mentioned before, in today's episode, we are going to be talking to Alex Kirby, who heads up growth over at Bird.Money. But before we do, let's just analyze the Oracle space at the moment. I mean, we kind of have, as everyone's very familiar with, Chainlink, the daddy of all of them. Then we've got UMA, and all of these protocols, these projects, apart from Chainlink, which is sitting at $10 billion market cap, the rest of them do gradually go down, from 1 billion into the 200 millions. And then as we go further down, we have some of the newcomers that have come to the space recently. And Bird.Money, whilst it may look like it's been not performing as well as it could have over the last 7 days, I think sometimes if you take a step back and just have a look at the chart overall, what I like about Bird is that it's had a steady growth over the past 90 days. I mean, they launched back in December, but as you can see, kind of been a steady growth as it's been going up. And then we've had various pumps. I don't really want to call them pumps, but there's been various news that's kind of helped push this further up. And when we still look at it, the market cap is well below 10 million. I mean, we're sitting at 8.3 million. I personally feel that this project certainly has a hell of a lot more leg room left to run. And I think once we're in full-blown delivery for these guys, because they've got a fair few announcements that they're going to be making over the coming weeks, and on this episode today they've got quite a major one, which certainly stay tuned to find out for more. So look, let's jump into the AMA. Let's catch up with Alex and see exactly what is happening over at Bird.Money. Let's go. So Alex, welcome to the show. It's no surprise we're fans of Oracle, so when we had the opportunity to have Bird.Money on, and obviously you're going to be announcing some exclusive news as well first on my channel, which is always a plus. So welcome, man. Happy to have you here. How you been?
Thanks. It's great to be here. Yeah, really good. How are you?
Not too bad. I mean, obviously, seeing as we're both in the UK, which is quite rare to have somebody on my channel who's also from the UK. What we got? We've got -2 in the UK today. Well, certainly where I am, so we've got a bit of snow. So it's chilly, mate. It's very chilly.
Yeah, it's cold. Good to be in chatting to friends though.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, look, I mean, Bird.Money, it's making waves. There's lots of chatter in various Telegram communities. There's exclusive news coming out. Clearly, you guys are cooking something up. But before we go into all of that, before we sort of drop it for our viewers, I'd like to know a bit more about Bird personally. But before we begin, I'm curious, the name, where did it come about?
Yeah, so the name Bird.Money, we originally thought that we wanted to have a logo, a name that would inspire projects as well as end users, as well as the community, in a way that sort of, it inspires a trajectory. It means that we like to think that Bird.Money, in collaboration with other projects, allows them to take off, allows them to lift off into the destined use case, right? It's basically a catalyst that with our product enables lending platforms, any cryptocurrency essentially that wants to reduce risk. It allows them to take off. It allows them to take to the skies, as we like to put it. So that's why we chose that.
The bird's eye view of what's going on, basically.
Exactly.
Okay. So, I mean, I know what oracles are, and there's new people coming into crypto every day, and it's in the news. There's institutions buying up into crypto, and so we're always got fresh blood coming in. So before we jump into the details, I mean, what is an oracle in its most basis form?
Oh, so an oracle essentially takes information that is off-chain and puts it onto the blockchain in a way that could be accessed by smart contracts. So if you think about a blockchain, there's no source of external data, or rather no trustless source. So what an oracle can do is essentially takes information that's from an off-chain location or an off-chain data provider and puts it onto the blockchain, so that, as I said, smart contracts and wallets and nodes, they can all access that information. And we don't just have an oracle. We have multiple oracles within our project, and we like to think we're not competitor to other oracle projects. We like to think that we can cohabit and coexist and be mutually beneficial to other oracle projects.
So, I mean, one of the things I noticed on your because I know you mentioned just now that you're not in a competitive, well, it is a competitive landscape, but you're not potentially competing with others in this space. But every oracle has something slightly different that it brings into the decentralized ecosystem. Some might be AI, some might be other items like that. But you mentioned off-chain oracle analytics. So what does that actually mean?
Essentially, we can analyze information that comes from an off-chain source, and using a specific algorithm, constantly refined algorithm, we can essentially analyze what the risk is going to be to a lender. So say, for example, a address has some on-chain history, be that volumes of tokens, specific tokens at the address, transaction history, transaction age. This is all on-chain information, but off-chain information is very hard to come by, especially in the lending space. You can't access that currently. And so what those off-chain oracle analytics do is take off-chain information. So that could be, the stock price in New York, the Dow Jones, or it could be, information about a pandemic, for example, which is quite kind of topical. That sort of information, we think that that's actually really useful in analyzing risk, in essentially giving you an up-to-date market intel report for the day. And so that off-chain information we use in our algorithms to assign our trust scores to addresses.
Okay. And we'll talk about trust in a minute, actually, because it's an interesting topic that you mentioned that. But before I do, once again, what makes you different from the rest of the oracles that we have in this space? And we're not talking about whether you're better or whether you're competing, but, I do feel it is a congested space. There are plenty of oracles here. So I'm curious what Bird.Money offers that others don't.
Sure. So the oracle is just one part of it, as I said, our system, our project. What we essentially do is, within the competitive landscape that you've got right now, if I was to ask you to name a lending platform in crypto, there's going to be some big names there that you're going to mention. But what those lending platforms currently do is they allow everyone to have the same level playing field when it comes to accessing credit. Now, if you compare that to the real world in traditional finance, people have varying access to credit. People with a very high trust score, who've been paying off credit card bills, who have regular incomes, they have higher, or rather greater, access to credit than those that don't. So if you essentially have no credit history, you can't get as much credit in the traditional world as if you do. And in the blockchain space, currently, one address without any history, without any transactions on it, could essentially have the same access to credit based on the same collateral as an address with 5 years transaction history, with millions of dollars in volume. And so what we like to think is that our unique use case is that we can essentially give more loans to people who are more likely to pay that off, or rather give them more credit based on the same level of collateral. So say you come to the space, you're a newcomer, you just create your Ethereum address, you just create an address on the chain, you don't have any history. We don't think that those, or rather it's kind of you can prove this, is that those addresses are less likely to pay loans back, or rather more likely to default on loans. And therefore, because we're the only project that's looking at changing the amount of credit that people can access based on this information, and as I said, off-chain events as well, that means that we're unique in our use case.
So that's interesting. So, I mean, if I was to liken it to something that we have in the traditional sense, then, we've got Equifax, Experian, I think, is a bit more well-known across the globe. They provide trust scores, right? If I'm going for a credit card application, then, usually it's, I suppose the financial service or the institution on the other end will use Equifax or Experian. There are many others, but those are the two that I tend to know heavily. And that will give me a trust score, and they trust that score, depending on, and that'll kind of give them a range of, where I fit within their profile as to whether they want to lend to me or not. That would be the case. But interestingly enough, that doesn't exist in crypto today from a decentralized perspective. And so really my next natural question here would be, is how do you then become the de facto for trust in this space? Because ultimately you're saying that, you are providing a trust score to a certain extent, but then why would why would others want to trust you if they don't know who you are, so to speak, right? Because you're Bird.Money, you're fairly new to the environment, but then why would your data be more trustworthy than somebody else's data?
Sure. It's a great question. I think that's essentially something that we've definitely considered. You can't say just because we're the first movers, just because there's no one else offering this trust score, that you can trust the one that we're giving. But I will say that you don't need to trust in a blockchain scenario.
Mm-hmm.
If the information's open source, you just need to verify it and not trust it. That's the famous quote, right?
Yeah.
So what we're planning on doing is having a trust network where anyone can provide a node of essentially our package, what we've got on offer. And you'll have data providers, which are providing this trust score and providing information, and then data consumers, which would be lending platforms or anyone who wants to access our trust score. And then in that decentralized way, with this open source software, you'll be able to see which nodes are providing you the information, how they're doing that. We've got multiple oracles actually, which have to, so essentially they draw consensus about putting information on chain, and if they don't agree, then the information simply isn't put on the blockchain. Okay. So there's a lot of fail safes. There's a lot of things that could go wrong with this system. Say for example, there was a fatal error and we gave everyone the best trust score around. You'd have a run on the lending platform, right? And we would become insolvent quite quickly. So we don't want any of that to happen, and we've got all of the checkboxes in place to ensure that doesn't happen. And essentially, as I said, the code's going to be completely visible and also audited as well, Solidity Finance audit too. So like, it's a great question, but we've definitely considered that, and we have the necessary infrastructure there.
Yes. Well, look, I mean, let's talk about roadmap, right? Because you guys launched back in December, and one thing I've noticed, just we don't really talk about price action much on this channel when it comes to founder interviews or interviews with teams, but I've seen a nice steady price increase over time. There hasn't been any massive spikes or run-ups. So for those who are watching, it's already listed, right? There is no when pre-sale, when private sale. You guys are in full-blown development, and secondary markets are performing really well. Now, I'm curious because there has to be some exciting news coming up. I mean, what do you have lined up? What should we all be really excited about over the coming weeks or even months?
So I think in my last interview last year, end of December, I was speaking to Crypto Banter, Ran Numa.
Yeah.
And in that interview, I was explaining that we had a lot of partnerships coming up. We have a lot of interest in our product and where it's going to be integrated. Today, we are announcing that we have a technical partnership with API 3, and we'll be running their nodes, specifically integrated technically, not just a marketing partnership.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is just one of the names that you'll hear very soon. This one is today, as I said, but we've got a number coming up this month.
Wow, okay.
Another thing is that we launched on testnet, which is another thing I announced back in December back then, and we're going to launch mainnet end of this month probably, or end of this quarter. So either end of February or end of March at the latest.
But it's all not too far away, to be honest.
No, not at all.
Corner. So that's pretty exciting news, actually. So well, then that leads me onto the community, because seeming as they're going to be all pumped with this technical integration partnership. I'm curious. From my perspective, for me, I'm a lot about community. Community for me is something that fuels crypto. It fuels the projects that are sort of opening up within this space every day. And from my perspective, I'm curious, how do you plan to keep your community engaged? Because look, for me, there's always two coins. There's those who are really in it for the tech, and they kind of want to see Bird succeed, and and we'll say become the next Chainlink, for example, right? Because we associate words with it. And then there are those who kind of look for the developments that happen in Bird.Money because they're invested behind you as well, right? Because they want to see you succeed, and with you succeeding, they succeed. So how do you plan to keep your community engaged with you on this journey?
So already we have a very organic community following. from sort of the first week, we had a lot of fantastic questions, a lot of not just shillers, but a lot of passionate people, a lot of really right away, like they could see the use case, they could understand quite quickly. It's quite it's quite simple when we put it into simple terms, exactly what we're aiming to do. And I think a lot of people got that straight away. Now, that's not to say that the bell curve meant that everyone understood. No, not everyone understood. And a lot of the time we find ourselves having questions asked in the Telegram or questions asked in the Discord, and other community members answer. It's not up to the moderators or the admins anymore. It's really great, because although we have all the documentation public, you'd think that you would need a little bit of constant education in our community. But honestly, the community is taking care of that. We've put a lot of information online about what we're trying to do, different disseminating outputs, Medium, Twitter, Telegram, and I think that's really had a really positive impact on our community. As I said, it's all organic, and we haven't been paying for these videos. People have organically approached us. I know you approached me about this. We've got a lot of interest from various YouTubers, influencers, completely organically, as I said. And the other thing I'll say is that if you want to know how we're going to retain the community, it's not just the roadmap, it's not just the partnerships and the announcements like the one today. It's also a case of constant engagement. Like, I'm going to be doing these videos every month. We're going to have Ask Me Anythings almost every month. We've got a lot planned for our community. We've got giveaways almost every week. A few exchange listings where we're going to bring in even more community members from those exchanges and from their groups. I hope that your YouTube channel is going to bring a few more community members. Visibility for Bird.Money is going to help. So every single day is getting better for our community. And the OGs, the old timers, that it's only 3 months that they've been around. They definitely consider themselves to be the first movers, and there's a lot of interest about where the future's going for them, at least.
Well, look, Alex, it's great. It sounds really good that you've got your communities back, to be honest, because it's really important here, because without it, fundamentally, projects don't really get very far. So thanks again for talking to us about Bird.Money. With such a landscape of Oracle focused projects, it's interesting to see that you go beyond just the everyday terms that we have within Oracles, which is we're providing off-chain data on-chain so people can validate it, etc., etc. But you do have an ecosystem that's built around it beyond that. So amazing. And the API 3 integration, technical integration, well done. Congratulations to all of you guys.
Yeah, thanks. On that one. I think one thing to say is, like you mentioned, it's not just the Oracle. We have our own lending platform integrated into the system. I don't think I'd mentioned that, actually. Very important is that, our community and other community members that I said we're attracting, they won't have to go to other third-party lending sites to use our trust score. It will be already on our website. We've got an integrated system, an integrated platform of lending. So you won't even need to go to other third-party places to access the trust score. Essentially, we're going to be a one-stop shop for anyone who wants to access lending products on the blockchain. So I think that's another thing that's really going to magnetize and attract people to stay with us as well.
I mean, just before we wrap up, it's key you mentioned one-stop shop, because I'm a big advocate of customer experience, user experience, and I do feel one thing that within the decentralized space that we have is, rightly so, to its name being decentralized, the damn user experience is all decentralized as well. It's very fragmented. So exactly right, and I'm very fond of ecosystems that come out that don't necessarily require users to go to different pockets of functionality to get done what they want to do. So when you have it all in one platform, it certainly makes it easier, because one of the major hurdles always has been, I would, and it's still here today from day one, is user experience. It's not giving enough thought within the decentralized space, and I feel very passionately about this, just because outside of crypto, UX, CX, that's kind of my background, and that's what I look into. And so when I see focuses around that, where it's a customer-led or customer-first approach, then I like to think that actually, this project is going somewhere. They're thinking the right way around it. Well, look, Alex, before we wrap up, any last words for our viewers?
I think if I haven't explained enough today, if you've got any questions for me, you can contact me on Telegram, or you can contact anyone in the team. Not just Telegram though. We've got Discord, Twitter, to even LinkedIn now. We just started a LinkedIn group and stuff like that. So, you know, wherever you are, come and contact us, come and ask me about anything you'd like. You know, we can't be so specific about specific dates of releases, but you know, I hope that I've explained essentially what we're looking to do here. As you said, a comprehensive turnkey solution for lending on the blockchain. And yeah, I mean, just stay tuned. As I said, we got a lot of announcements to make soon. So yeah, it's all systems go here.
Cheers, Alex. Well, I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.
Definitely.